I'm joined now by Marina Jurica, who is one of the newest meteorologists in our CBS family, working for our sister station in Los Angeles. Marina, first of all, welcome, and thank you for joining us to talk about some nerdy stuff, some deep weather details.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
So your journey through television also has some overlap in the research world. Can you talk a little bit about how you have come to where you are now and some of your background?
I spent over 20 years in TV as a meteorologist, and I've always been fascinated with where meteorology meets space. And so I became a launch forecaster at Kennedy Space Center and at Vandenberg Space Force Base. And I have enjoyed space and launch forecasting for many years and continue to do so. And that got me very interested also in research, which is why I went ahead and continued with a PhD program.
And one of the projects that you worked on most recently was something called the SWAT project. First of all, explain what SWAT stands for and what it is.
So SWAT is a surface, water, ocean, and topography satellite. It's an amazing tool. It basically can look at how much water is changing over the entire globe. And we've never been able to do that before with fresh water. So this is the first satellite that's going to be able to look at reservoirs, lakes, and rivers and figure out how much water is coming in, how much is going out. Of course, everything that's very important for the water budget and how that is changing dramatically. And so it's very exciting. We all need water, so it's an essential thing of life.
Especially in California, water issues are always top of mind. So explain the difference between this particular mission and some of the data that's been available previously. How much of a difference are we talking about?
So, Paul, we like to say if you're putting on a pair of glasses and something that was blurry before now becomes very clear. So the resolution and the fine detail at the coastline is unprecedented. And that, of course, is extremely important for California as we move forward in what we need to plan with the future of sea level rise and how that is affecting us here, especially in this state. And so SWAT has the ability to make our forecasting models better. And so the data that's going in has such a finer resolution that we're going to be able to forecast so much better for how sea level rise is moving forward in the future and what we need to do to plan for the future and make changes so that we can adapt.
We're already getting data. There's already new research being published based on that data. Where does it kind of go from here? You have a better sense of kind of what's in the works. What are you excited about learning from this?
Well, really getting it into the hands of scientists like ourselves. And so that's the next step, is that SWAT is basically being calibrated and validated. And as that process continues, then it is able to get into the hands of scientists once all that data is moved out, which should be later this year. So that's going to be the most beneficial part of all of this, is being able to see this data, get into the models so that the models become better and that planners can actually start to look at the future and do what needs to be done now, do what needs to be done in the next few years, and then plan for what needs to be done in the next few decades.
So you actually worked directly on this project before you joined our sister station there in Los Angeles. What was your role in the SWAT project? What were you working on?
So I really helped a lot of the scientists communicate how this is going to be so beneficial to everybody. And as well as the calibration validation team, I was able to travel to Alaska and to Oregon and help not only show the work that's being done, but put in river gauges, which is a very laborious process, I'll tell you, so that once the satellite was launched, it could get the data from those rivers and from those lakes and reservoirs and make sure that it was accurate so that we knew that SWAT was working perfectly, because we are comparing it to all of these gauges that we put not only in America, but all over the world.
So you're one of many people working on this. Give us a sense of a scale, because it comes down to people designing the mission, making sure that the launch goes as it's supposed to, getting the data back down. But how many people are working on this the whole scope of the project?
Oh, thousands of people are working on it. So it was from the onset a global project, which is what sea level rise is all about. It's about making the changes not only here, but making the changes worldwide.
Yeah, in terms of sea level rise, obviously, both of us living in coastal communities, it's something that's one of the biggest concerns as climate change continues to have more of an impact on the entire system. What is the data that we get from SWAT specifically going to be able to tell us about sea level rise, its rate of how it's changing? Can we use this information to better predict exactly how it's going to evolve from here?
Well, yes, because the data is better, that data ingested into those models is going to give us better solutions and really better knowledge about how everything is changing. There's a twofold. With sea level rise, really the ocean absorbs the heat, the 90% of the heat that comes in from global warming. So we need to know how much more the ocean is going to be able to contain all of this heat before it starts releasing it back into the atmosphere, and as a result, then increases the rate of global warming. So think of it like a gas pedal. So you're pressing on the gas, and that is basically what's happening. We've had 100 years of sea level rise happen in the last 30. So it is just going to keep accelerating as we move forward. So we need to understand that rate of acceleration so we can make the changes necessary. And SWAT is going to be able to understand how much of that heat absorption and capacity is happening. And it's also going to be able to see if it's releasing it back into the atmosphere, which will accelerate global warming. And then warm water expands naturally, as you know. And so as the heat capacity of the ocean continues and that warm water just keeps expanding, events such as El Nino, which is something we're anticipating here in California this year, could accelerate in a very short period of time sea level rise by up to a foot. So we need to take into consideration what's happening on a global scale, but what's also happening on a micro scale. And it's these small scale resolutions of these small features near the coastline that SWAT is going to give an unprecedented view of. And that's what we're so excited about.
Yeah, and also El Nino, we've had these global ocean heat waves in basically the entire ocean system around the entire world. This is something that can hopefully give us a lot of excellent data. The research is one thing. We get very excited about that as people with science degrees. How it gets used once that research is published is another thing. How are officials and agencies going to be able to utilize this to help to hopefully plan for, maybe mitigate the impacts of climate change?
Well, I hope just putting the information in their hands will make it very prevalent to what steps they need to take. Do we need to raise our seawalls? Do we need to protect bays and estuaries? I know in San Francisco, sea level rise would create huge problems for that area. And so the rate of sea level rise, which is what SWAT is going to forecast, will be able to make what changes need to be made immediately happen. I think that if this information gets into the hands of government officials, of planners who need to know what's going on, I think they will then take it more seriously and they will move to the next level of the plans that need to be made to ensure our future. We have over 200,000 people that live near the coastline just here in California, and that's more than any other state in the nation.
So let's return to El Nino. We are heading into an El Nino winter, but this one is a little different because of the presence of those blobs of warm ocean water elsewhere around the entire world. So as we look at impacts on California, whether it's our perspective in the Bay Area or you for Southern California, actually take the research hat off and put the forecasting hat on. What are you thinking for the upcoming winter? What are you potentially worried about for the upcoming winter and even farther down the line as we all worry about the impacts of climate change?
Well, I think my biggest concern is that we're forecasting for a strong El Nino year. And so for California, in conjunction with king tides, that means that we could be dealing with even more issues with coastal erosion. And that's already a huge problem that we are trying to deal with right now. And so coming up on this winter, we're going to finally have the data back from SWAT available out into the public. And so I think that's going to help us really understand these small scale features that are near the coastline that are going to be exacerbated by coastal issues like El Nino, as well as coastal tides and as well as king tides. And then we're going to be able to make these decisions a lot faster because we're going to have a better understanding of what's happening along the coastline. And we're going to want to make those changes, I would feel, as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting winter, to say the least, on the heels of last year's very interesting winter, especially around here in the Bay Area. Marina Jurica, thank you very much for your time and for your perspective. We look forward to seeing the results of the SWAT mission and what it can tell us about how things are changing.
Thank you so much, Paul, for your time.